Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. Welcome to our latest episode of What the Hell is Going On at the Kyokai featuring OHO. Since this Basho schedule has forced us to throw all previous expectations out the window, and OHO's 8-4 record has him quite high in the overall ranks, it seems entirely feasible that he'll end up facing a Sekiwake before this tournament's over. We have one fight of his against Hoshoryu that we can watch, and two against Wakamoto Haru, so we'll check those out. Also, since Hokuseiho slipped back and they have the same record now, that's a pretty reasonable matchup as well, so we'll also take a look at their one previous fight. It obviously doesn't allow for seeing how two wrestlers' strategies evolve match after match, but it can act as a more standard type of analysis where we make some suppositions about what could happen given what we see and what we know about everyone's style. We'll start at the bottom with the Hokuseiho match from this March.
右を差しに行ったが王鵬が右のは左をつけ下手を引いた北青鵬上手も引いた捕まえた北青鵬上手が切れた王鵬寄り切り
OHO was coming off his 4-11 disaster in January, and on day one he got set up to face Sumo's new Monster of the Midway. Given the difference in how OHO fights when he's got some confidence and self-belief and when it's all falling apart, it wouldn't have been shocking to see Hokuseiho blow him off the clay. Alright. Being an Oshi type of guy, OHO starts with the only type of Tachiai that makes sense. Hands up and let's drill this motherfucker. To his credit, OHO is showing some spirit. Hokuseiho, of course, goes for the belt because that's his game and no one's proven he needs to learn anything else yet to succeed. But OHO knows this because everyone knows this, so rather than try to push with both hands, he clamps under that long-ass arm and just pushes with the right. At 6'3", OHO is also tall enough to get a good push on that chin, and pushing the chin well necessarily bends Hokuseiho in a way that makes getting the belt harder. And by God, it's working. We saw in the Hokuseiho and Mitoryu preview, good call on that one, Spiff, that Hokuseiho isn't actually that difficult to push around, so this is not as advantageous a position as it would be against most other opponents. But OHO's been really smart about this. He kept hold of Hokuseiho's right arm until Hokuseiho hit the rope, and now he needs his left hand to help push. But he barely gets Hokuseiho up on one foot before Gigaseiho just bulldozes his way out of it. I've given OHO a lot of shit, but what the hell is he supposed to do here? Hokuseiho isn't using either arm to defend or break the push. He just walks out of OHO's grip. OHO catches him on the recovery and gets his hands wherever he can, which is low, and tries another push. OHO gets himself totally low and tries to bring his weight forward, but we're entering the Hokuseiho swing. This is where Hokuseiho pivots because he has that right hand on the belt, and he usually tries to drag his opponent to the ground. To his credit, when OHO moves forward, he shifts back and pulls up on OHO's right arm to defend. Now his height is giving OHO all sorts of problems, because he's bringing OHO's weight up in a way almost nobody else can pull off. By clearing OHO's arm, he also opens the path for a double belt grip, and again, his height makes this viable in a way it isn't for a lot of other guys because he doesn't have to stretch his body and reduce his effective strength to keep this hold. And there's not much else to say here. OHO doesn't have a defense in this position. He just has to try and keep the wedgie from getting so deep he needs a jackhammer to cut his mawashi loose. Next, we'll check out two fights against Waka-Do. OHO is 1-4 against Waka, but we'll see two late Basho matches from September and November when Waka was really coming into his own. Their three previous matches involved Waka winning via Yorikiri twice, split by OHO getting a pushdown victory. Alright, September.
頭で行きました王鵬いい当たり上手を許してしまいました上手
Boy, Waka loves that leftward lean, but OHO absolutely plants his head directly into that exposed right shoulder. For athletes in contact sports, muscle acts like armor, and you can see that here from the fact Waka's right arm doesn't go shooting off into the crowd. OHO stood Waka straight up, and if you want to push, this should be a pretty good outcome. Unfortunately, on the other side, we can see OHO's elbow flare up and out. To get a good push, he generally needs to get that hand and elbow inside. Waka gets his feet switched and set. OHO's left is firmly planted on his chest, but he has his hand on the forearm to try and limit the power OHO can generate. His left hand is around OHO's back, and even though OHO has it clamped as the grappler versus the pusher, this isn't a bad spot. OHO's able to push when Waka moves his right hand off the arm and to OHO's belt. OHO might be moving forward, but he needs a way to change the momentum because Waka has taken total control. There's one other small thing to notice, and it's probably ho-hum to sumo experts, but it's wild when you first see it. Can you see how OHO's left hand doesn't seem to be in a position to keep pushing? Waka didn't push the arm. By rotating his body to get the belt, he, at the same time, bent OHO's wrist further to reduce how much he could extend his arm on the push. We can see OHO's lost his hand position and body position and any control over what's going on when his left arm whips out in a desperation grab as Waka begins stepping aside. If Waka had let go of OHO right here, we'd definitely have had another clip for the Basho's Yeats video, but he's all nice and stuff and puts the child down gently. Now for their November fight.
王鵬が踏み込んだ左四つどちらも力が出る形ですが下手を深くした若元春右から絞る王鵬嫌った若元春踏み込む王鵬も押し返しています土俵際左入ってすくい投げ
Alright, that one was way more of a banger. Waka apparently does not give a shit about his shoulder. I guess OHO's brain should wear out faster, but still. Remember what I said about OHO needing to get that right arm inside? His elbow still flares, but because he staggers Waka on the tachi-ai, he's able to land the right now. It's not perfect since his elbow is still up and Waka's hand is planted in his armpit to keep it from coming down, but it's there. He pulls the arm back because he's not going to get much done with it in that position. At the same time, Waka decides to bat him in the face. Ow. OHO gets his body and both arms forward, even getting his left hand on Waka's belt. This isn't necessarily his preference, but having a belt hold and Waka's right arm clamped on him rather than Waka holding his belt isn't bad. They're fighting on the other side, but it's hard to see exactly what's happening. Now we can see they're basically clamp for clamp, but it's not balanced. OHO has the belt and Waka is high on his arm for a better clamp. Waka's hand is only around the back, but OHO just has his wrist. Waka switches feet to left forward. This gives him just enough extra reach to stretch and get the belt. OHO apparently has no idea either how to tell this is coming or how to defend it, because he does nothing to stop it, so this straight up improves Waka's position. With the left hand locked in, Waka switches feet back and bends way down to his right, trying to get OHO bent far enough to get over his shoulder and into a double belt grip. But he misses, so he resecures the clamp and keeps bending right, forcing his weight onto OHO's left arm and simultaneously keeping OHO from doing the same thing to him on the other side. They jostle a bit, and then, whoa! OHO shows what it takes to break that fearsome Wakadu belt grip, stepping away from him, pivoting into the arm with the grip, and basically trying to snap his arm off at the elbow if he doesn't let go. The downside for OHO is that he's backing up and getting near the rope, but after a step left and some hand fighting, he's put this fight much more into his realm than it was a few moments ago. Waka reaches in for the belt, but OHO shoves it away violently. OHO gets his left foot on the rope, hands in with Waka's on the outside. This is as good of a pushing position as he could want. Waka's doing his best to defend now, but OHO straight up bulldozers him to the rope. Now comes the tricky part, getting the target over the hay and out. OHO's pushing his shoulders, so Waka defends by rotating hard to his right and pushing up with his left hand. This gets OHO's left hand off him by taking away its target, and his right hand off by parrying upwards. With his hands dislodged, it's down now to bodying Waka out. But Waka sneaks his feet to the side, getting enough of his body out of OHO's way, and adds to the legend of the Waka Ropponage. Finally, OHO's December fight against Hoshoryu. You might remember this one. We can also call it the nephew's no good, very bad, absolutely terrible day. I feel like the announcer yelling Hatakakomi would have gone into legend like the miracle on ice if OHO had somehow won the Basho, but he turned into his usual bubble of so far unfulfilled potential after that. Anyway, Hoshoryu is a guy willing to battle his opponent's game plan, and here's another example of that. OHO wants to push forward, always forward, so Hoshoryu immediately attacks his right arm on the tachi-ai before it can do anything. We can see he's also decided to forego a belt grab attempt on the right. Despite OHO successfully pushing off, he was trying to block the hand. This is a type of strategy you'll see in a lot of various competitive arenas. When one side knows they're superior, they'll sometimes be more defensive and allow themselves a chance to create openings later, rather than feel the need to attack and force a victory as quickly as possible. To get back inside, Hoshoryu leading with his right shoulder. OHO's just trying to get his hand solidly on Hoshoryu to push again. Although OHO's right hand looks somewhat jammed up, if his left can get planted, it's not necessarily a bad position. Unfortunately for OHO, he never gets his left hand further in than Hoshoryu's upper arm, and as soon as Hoshoryu rotates to get his left hand pushing up on OHO's ribs, his right shoulder rotates away and OHO loses contact. Hoshoryu pushes up, and OHO's arms are in a pretty fucked position. Well, except for trying to shove Hoshoryu down by his own arms. I know that when I initially saw this fight, I thought Hoshoryu got a little too exuberant in trying to launch OHO, and OHO took advantage. But Hoshoryu's balance is rock solid until OHO attacks his arms and makes him stagger forward. Even here, his feet have essentially gotten under him, but OHO is already pushing on his head. And down goes nephew. OHO had a 2-1 lead against Hoshoryu from back in the day before this fight, so some people wondered if he might have the secret sauce for winning this Yusho critical matchup. When you dig into it though, it really doesn't look that way. OHO has beaten plenty of people with pushdown attacks when he's forced backwards, and up till the point he hit Hoshoryu's arm square, he was getting handled. I realized the fight up to that point had only lasted 2 seconds, like literally 2 seconds, but sumo happens fast, and Hoshoryu had done exactly what he wanted. Given Hoshoryu's willingness to adjust tactics, I don't think we should expect OHO to have some kind of magical hold on Hoshoryu going forward. As for the other two, having shown an ability to break Waka's incredible belt grip, he might have a chance in this matchup here and there. Given his inability to so far actually get Waka out, I wouldn't pick him until he actually shows he can pull it off, but if he can find a way, Waka's tendency to stick with his particular style of sumo means that one win could potentially lead to more. Hokuseiho might be OHO's toughest matchup of the three though, since he's effectively unbeatable by guys up to a certain level of ability. Hoshoryu has enough tools at his disposal to find a way, so his relatively easy win over Big Boy wasn't a shock, but Waka needed rope tricks to get that win, and OHO doesn't even have those. It's really hard to see him ever beating Hokuseiho on a day when Hokuseiho shows any interest in fighting. That's it for day 14. Like it if you learned something, and I'll see you tomorrow.